Hello, United Boys viewers. Today's video is very different as we will be discussing about the men in blue instead of the men in red. Manchester City, the team that won the treble in 2022-2023 season, 4 Premier Leagues in a row, and a side that looked second to none. This side is now winless in the league in 2026 except for club games. And even worse, have just recently lost to Bodø Glimt in the Champions League, a result that has seriously damaged their chances of breaking into the top 8. The fall has been sharp and for many fans unthinkable. After a rather terrible 2024-25 season, driven largely by the injury of their Ballon d'Or winner Rodri, City were forced into change. They moved aggressively in the summer transfer market. Reijnders, and Cherki were all statement signings. Clear signals that City wanted Champions League back at all costs. The new season started brightly. A 4-0 thrashing win away at Wolves, featuring Haaland's brace, a standout debut from Reijnders, who scored and helped create Haaland's goals, and a last-minute goal from Cherki to sweeten the scoreline. People genuinely thought City were back. Then came the early crash. Injuries to Cherki and defeats to Brighton and Spurs, and yet somehow City ended the 2025 relatively stable, finishing second in the calendar year right behind Arsenal, firmly in the title race. So what went wrong in going into 2026? Well, to shorten the explanation, draws. Outside of wins against Crystal Palace and Exeter City in cup competitions, City kept dropping points in games that should have put away or barely escaped in matches where they were second best. Their new Champions League winning goalkeeper Donnarumma had been bailing them out almost every match, making huge saves to keep them alive and not letting their opposition thrash them. But the underlying issues never really left the team. 2026 found a new low. City had travelled to Old Trafford to face their Manchester rivals. After beating them 3-0 at home a couple months ago, City now lost 2-0 at the Old Trafford. With United adjusting under the new manager Michael Carrick, many still expected City to have the edge even though it was an away game. Instead, the game followed the same frustrating pattern fans had already seen. Slow defending, poor execution in attack, and a side that never really imposed itself in the game. That defeat, on top of the run of draws, felt like the moment the mood properly turned and Arsenal slipped away with the title. The biggest long-running concern has been City's defense, particularly Ruben Dias, who is no longer in his prime. Yes, he still has energy. Yes, he is only 28, but he cannot be the only defender to be relied upon. Guardiola, who once used to be a dynamic left-back, who occasionally surged forward for attacks, now plays centrally next to Dias because of consistent use of Nico O'Reilly at the left-back position. On paper, that sounds logical. Guardiola is in his natural position, but this pairing has been inconsistent for months now. And what's worse is that the issues don't end here. With Rico Lewis struggling for consistency, Pep Guardiola has often turned to Matheus Nunes, a natural midfielder, to play at right back. Surprisingly, Nunes has done a decent job. He's solid in 1v1s and gives City stable build-up on the right, typically linking with Bernardo Silva. On the left, Nico O'Reilly's emergence after his FA Cup heroics last season has pushed him into the spotlight. The talent is obvious. He's smooth on the ball and imposing 6'4" tall and is a real aerial weapon. The major downside is his inexperience. O'Reilly has struggled in 1v1 situations against proper wingers who can dribble past him using their pace and tech. His decision making often lets him down too. Many times he's caught up high in the pitch alongside Semenyo or Doku when the opposition spring counterattacks, which leaves the defense exposed. Up front, the problems are just as glaring. Erling Haaland, City's star striker and arguably Europe's most feared forward, has started to ghost in big games. Since the turn of the year, his goal tally has dried up, and that comes down to poor execution as much as poor service. And he has not been alone. Phil Foden, City's golden boy, once the man who could beat one or two players and unlock a defense on his own, has also been guilty of wasteful finishing and mistimed decisions in the final third. City are still creating attacks that look brilliant in the build-up, but the finishing touch is simply not there yet. But that doesn't mean it's all negatives for City. There are definitely a few positives, majorly Cherki and Reijnders, who have largely lived up to their billing. Cherki, even with his injury setback, has racked up assists in the league, constantly threading passes between the lines and gliding past defenders. And with no obvious weak foot and plenty of flair, it's nearly impossible to stop him, regardless of how weak he may be physically. Reijnders has been the jack in the box, progressing play, helping defend counters, even making runs in behind as kind of a second striker when needed. He has done almost everything City could ask for, apart from finishing more of the chances that fall to him, which has been a recurring frustration. Donnarumma has arguably been City's standout performer since the turn of the year. He has repeatedly saved them from heavier defeats, stepping up with the big 1v1 stops and sharp reflex saves wherever the defensive line collapses in front of him. His distribution, although, is clearly a downgrade from Edison's, but his shot stopping and calmness in crucial moments have kept City in games they had no right to be in. All of these flaws and bright spots were on display in the Bodø Glimt game. Even though it was an away night in Norway, City were expected to take 3 points home and all but guarantee a top 8 place in the UEFA Champions League. Instead, defensive chaos from the backline, with Guardiola and Diaz injured, a lack of experience from Haaland in the backline, and more underwhelming performances from Haaland and Foden led to City conceding 3 goals. Cherki's stunning strike from outside the box into the bottom corner was nothing more than a consolation. To make matters worse, a Rodri red card in what felt like a pivotal phase of the game in the second half piled on the misery. That dismissal not only killed any chance of a comeback on the night, it now leaves City in a dangerous position. In the league, they're 7 points behind Arsenal, and in Europe, they're facing the possibility of dropping into the playoff phase instead of cruising into the last 8. That one moment of indiscipline and that one game will loom large when City face Galatasaray without Rodri. And speaking of Rodri, he has become a talking point himself ever since winning the Ballon d'Or. Since returning from his long-term injury, some fans have half-jokingly said that he has cursed the club. Harsh or not, it reflects a real debate. And it is true. Rodri is no longer the midfielder he used to be. The player who once pinged long balls onto a sixpence, shielded the defense with ease, and smashed top corner winners from distance now looks slower, and off the ball, he is much slower as well. He's less able to shut down counters due to his lack of pace, and more easily dispossessed. His passing range, although there, can help him stabilize the squad and maybe allow him to improve his gameplay in the near future. As an overall athlete and defensive presence, he has declined. That decline has opened up a serious question. Should City move on from Rodri to rebuild their defensive core? The club desperately needs a stronger defensive platform. Someone who can fix the constant chaos at the back. Their dependence on Rodri was exposed last season, but now with him a shadow of his former self and not getting any younger, talk of Nico Gonzalez gaining more minutes or even Rodri being sold in the summer of 2026 no longer sounds ridiculous. If and when City finally solve their defensive midfielder problem, whether by evolving Rodri's role or replacing him entirely, you bet that they almost certainly will become a far more frightening side again, be it in England or be it in Europe entirely. Even with all the negativity, City are not out of the title race by any means, nor are they out of Champions League contention. This squad is clearly stronger than last season, and with Semenyo adding extra depth and energy into the attack, there is still a version of this team that can turn things around. The problems are real and obvious, but so is the talent. If the finishing sharpens, the defense tightens, and the Rodri question is answered properly, Manchester City can still pivot from crisis to comeback.